Greetings, fair listeners, and thank you for joining me once again as we celebrate stories and storytelling in all their forms and the bards and artists who bring them all to life. I am the Tale Collector and your host, Erica Adams. I don't mean to boast, but I decided one day to perform a random act of kindness for my younger sister. I bought her the DVD, Labyrinth, one of her favorite movies, as well as mine. Before watching it, we first decided to go through the trailers, just to see if there was anything interesting. I don't know about her, but one trailer certainly caught my attention. It was an ad for a TV show, another creation of the legendary Jim Henson. A narrator invites viewers to, quote, a magical world where tales of fantasy and adventure come true, during which we are treated to a montage of enticing fairy tale images. Ancient castles, beautiful princesses, brave adventurers, strange creatures, and true love. But what about the show itself? Does it live up to its promise? All that and more, my dear listeners. All that and more. Let us now gather around the fire and hear Jim Henson's The Storyteller, first airing in 1987 through 1988, with a spin-off, The Storyteller, Greek Myths, in 1990, and recommended for viewers 7 and up. In a castle with no name, in a land of shadow and dust, an old man rests in his tattered armchair, a goblet of wine at his side and a warm fire blazing in the hearth before him. A strange old man he is, ears like saucers, a nose like a cherry, his hair like snow-laden grass and his robe a mishmash of faded colors and threadbare patches. In another mystical part of the world known as Greece, there is another man, an Athenian thief with little but the rags on his back. Deep within the maze of the dreaded Minotaur, he wanders in search of treasure, even as he seeks a way to escape the passages as cunning as he. But you mustn't be fooled by these appearances, for these are no ordinary souls. With a twinkle in their eyes and but a few words, they have the power to conjure whole worlds, revive eras long past, and bring the most glorious visions to life. In short, they are each a storyteller. And so, night after night, and accompanied by their loyal, though rather snarky dog, these sages of the spoken word regale their audience with tales of beauty, valor, joy, sorrow, and wisdom, and all with their own very unique flair. Both the original and Greek myth series were developed and written by Anthony Minghella, who directed such renowned films as The English Patient, The Talented Mr. Ripley, and Cold Mountain. The first series consists of 9 episodes and focuses primarily on the retelling of more obscure European folk tales, a combination of German, Russian, and Celtic. The spin-off miniseries consists of 4 episodes and focuses, as the subtitle states, on the myths of ancient Greece. Both shows are formatted with a framing device of their respective storyteller in the, quote, real world, introducing a story, which makes up each episode proper. Like many of Henson's works, the storyteller features a combination of human actors and puppets, with the former taking on the lead roles. The original storyteller was played by the late John Hurt of Watership Down, The Elephant Man, and 1984 fame. Henson originally intended the eponymous character to be a puppet himself, but eventually decided to instead have him played by an actor wearing heavy makeup. Thanks to this design choice, as well as his superb acting, Hurt reminds me greatly of characters like Merlin from Disney's Sword in the Stone and Brother Aiden from Tom Moore's The Secret of Kells. Despite his impish appearance and humble surroundings, he seems to possess a borderline wizardly insight and power that one can't help but be awed by. But he also has a lively creative zest and a grandfatherly charm and amiability, punctuated from time to time by some goofy but still very human absent-mindedness. The Greek myth storyteller was played by Michael Gambon, better known to Harry Potter film fans as Albus Dumbledore from The Prisoner of Azkaban onward. Though physically younger and more robust than his European counterpart, he is no less wise and candid, as fascinated and reverent of the ruins around him as a historian or archaeologist. With elegant speech and a rich, strong voice, he projects an almost royal, warrior-like nobility as he honors Greece's greatest tragedies, treating their heroes, gods, and monsters with the dignity and respect that such tales are due. But honestly, what's a Jim Henson production without the puppets? The other half of both main casts is the dog. His gravelly voice, courtesy of Henson's son Brian, will be instantly recognizable to Labyrinth fans as that of the delightfully cantankerous dwarf, Hoggle. Aside from being the literal audience within the show, the dog also represents us, the viewing audience. As excitable as he is cynical, he often interrupts the storytellers with questions and remarks, nitpicking and correcting any detail mistakes, but generally becoming emotional in spite of himself when the stories get really good. Plus, the dog injects a healthy dose of comic relief in a show that might otherwise have ended up overly grim or somber, no matter how interesting or beautiful the legend in question. I think the juxtaposing of real and synthetic creatures is both smart and entertaining. The practical and green screen effects and the makeup on the humanoid creature actors are applied and performed with so much heart, care, and authenticity. From the beastly but noble-hearted Hans the Grovelhog to the Graiai, three haggard sisters with one eye between them. But the meticulous, imaginative designs of the puppets and masterful performances of their puppeteers and voice actors ensure that they steal every scene that they're in. And the creators weren't at all afraid to make them as creepy, outlandish, or fanciful as their given stories. From the spindly, blood-red devils from The Soldier and Death, and the gluttonous, ear-piercing griffin from The Luck Child, to the majestic, beautifully white thought lion from The True Bride, and the ominously arrogant vulture from Daedalus and Icarus. Both shows have two primary strengths. The first is relatability. Sometimes either storyteller will begin narrating straight away, but most often he may be reminded of a tale by something quite ordinary. After getting rid of a spider for the terrified dog and admitting to him his own fear of rats, the European storyteller decides to speak of a unique lad, aptly named Fear Not, to while away the dark, frightening hours. Likewise, the Athenian storyteller enters a room filled with statues of cold-eyed soldiers, while the dog finds a half-buried stone head from which snakes rise up like beckoning fingers, the head of the dreaded Medusa. The storyteller is thus prompted to recite the myth of Perseus and the Gorgon. The second strength is immersion. Both shows apply inventive ways to merge the real and fantasy worlds together to simulate the atmosphere of listening to an oral tale, even as we still literally see what is happening on screen. This can be as simple as some well-executed camera edits and dissolves in which a story character drops an object in one shot and that same object appears by the storyteller in the next. A more fantastic example is when he speaks while standing near a painting and we see the character's silhouettes move inside it accordingly. And it's especially fun whenever he and the dog watch the characters, in miniaturized form, as if they are actually present. In one such scene, Fear Not cheerfully dips his feet into a pond that just happens, in reality, to be the dog's water dish. One of the gifts of Jim Henson was that he could make it very easy for us to forget that his puppets are just that, puppets. Illusions, fantasies, creations of foam and fleece. But why would we want to remember such a thing anyway? The same principle applies to good stories, and the storyteller provides children with an excellent introduction and education. Striking just the right balance between funny, thrilling, and romantic, this series retells these timeless classics in a mature and sincere way that respects the intelligence of younger audiences, utilizing the whimsy and charm that Henson is known for. These are among the masters whose standards I always try to adhere to, as an aspiring teller and collector of tales. Gather round next time for another tale you may have forgotten or have never heard before. Until then, listeners, may inspiration always find you.